So good to see you this morning. Welcome to all our campuses today. We're in the middle of a message series called Why We Love Jesus. We're closing it down next weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. Hope if you're here in town, you got family members, bring them. Next weekend's going to be Why We Love Jesus, because he loves us unconditionally. So it'd be a great message for everybody here. And drag them to church if you have to, and we appreciate that. I used to do a lot of premarital counseling. I don't do any anymore. But when we did premarital counseling, I would talk to the couples and say, hey, why do you want to get married? And this is the answer everyone gave: because we love each other. We love each other. And that's a nice answer, and that's great, but that's not enough, right? You need more than love. You're going to need more than love if you want to stay married. Even though the Beatles told us that that's all we need way more than just love. And so I pressed it a little bit farther, and it's like, okay, well, tell me why you love her. Why do you love him? And there was like a super awkward moment, and then somebody would say this: I love the way she loves me. What else? Well, I love knowing that she is my soulmate. All right. I love the way she makes me laugh. I love the way he makes me smile. I love her body. Nobody ever says that to the pastor, by the way. So in marriage, getting married is the easy part, but not everybody wants to get married. One person even called it legalized prison. Yikes. I love being married. I've been married for 35 years. I've enjoyed every season of our married life, and I really like this one. It is called the empty nest syndrome, which is not a syndrome. It's awesome. Now we have grandkids. It's even better. It's awesome. So not everybody, though, loves marriage. That's fine. We get it. And we were thinking about this. We were talking about why do we love Jesus? Not everybody loves Jesus. They find him a little bit constricting, boring, tough, strange, not bad, but not really, I mean, most people are a little curious about Jesus. There's a guy in the Bible that was very curious about him. He had heard about Jesus, and it was a big deal. Jesus was, at this point in the thing, he is a rock star. Lots of people are following him around. It's a big deal. If Jesus came into your town, it's an exciting day. It's kind of like a parade. He'd come into town. People want to hear him, listen to him, be around him. They bring their friends and be people who were sick, bring their little children. Everything, it was a big deal. And so here they are on this day, and he was compelling. He'd spoken into the lives of poor people and addressed issues with the religious establishment and kind of gave them a little bit of jabs ever so often. So here's Jesus coming into this town, and this is one of my favorite stories in the entire Bible, Luke chapter 19. Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town, and there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd, so he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to go that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. Zacchaeus, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. And Zacchaeus quickly climbed down, took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He's gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I'll give half my wealth to the poor, Lord, and if I've cheated people out of their taxes, I'll give back 4 times as much. And Jesus responded, salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost. Amazing, right? If Jesus was to come to Omaha, would we go? I don't know. And someone was like, well, that would be neat. That'd be kind of cool to see him, but I don't know. I don't like going downtown. So crowded down there. Plus, I'm not a big fan. And I got things to do. And the Husker game's on. I don't know what to do. I'd like to see him, but really, I don't know. Zacchaeus, what we know about him is he is a tax collector. He works for the IRS. Now, if you work for the IRS, you should know this. we don't like you. We don't. We don't like paying taxes, and you probably already know this. And I'm sure it's a very thankless job. And if you work for the IRS, bless you, but we really don't like paying tax. I mean, we don't mind, but there's certain things like, we think we get taxed way too much. Now, for the Jew in the first century, they hated paying taxes because they paid tax to Romans. And again, the Romans were brutal, godless people. And so not only did they were required to give 10% of their money to the temple, they had to give above and beyond that to the Roman government, and they just hated that because these people were godless people and brutal. And again, it would be kind of like us having to give our money to a foreign dictator, and they were just not happy about it at all. So here's Zacchaeus, a tax collector, and it's basically seen as a traitor to his own people. And not only was he a traitor, he was a wealthy man, and he got rich because he extorted money from his own people. The way he got rich was if you had to pay taxes and it was your turn to go into the tax collector's office, or if he had to come to your home, he would say, here's what I need to see your tax form, and you'd show him, and it's like, it's $1,500, and he said, well, it appears to me by looking at this that you owe $1,800. Like, no, I did the math. I've done it a couple of times. Sorry, but you're going to need, and you're going to have to pay $18. And so he would just call in the guards if you didn't want to pay the $18 and lock you up for a little while. What he would do is pay Rome the $15, and he'd collect the $300 and stick it in his own pocket. Tax collectors could just do that. And they had authority to do that, and they could, and that's how they got paid, and that's how they got their wealth. So everybody hated Zacchaeus. Everybody did. The Pharisees even had their own kind of version of that, where being a tax collector had its own category. It was oftentimes referred to as tax collectors and sinners. Tax collectors and sinners. So here's Zach, a rich, powerful, despised, short little guy. He can't see the parade. He can't see Jesus. He's too short. No one's going to make way for him. Nobody's make room for him. He's got what are you doing like that? And you know this. Short people have no reason to live. They got little hands and little eyes. They walk around telling great big lies. They got little noses and tiny little teeth. They wear platform shoes on their nasty little feet. Now, if you don't know that song, go ahead and Google short people have no reason to live. So Zach finds a tree. He wants to get a good view. And as Jesus was approaching, as the parade was coming by, he sees this guy up in the tree. Not only did Zacchaeus want to see Jesus, Jesus wanted to see Zacchaeus. An amazing moment. The parade stops. Jesus stops and tells Zacchaeus, I'd like to come over to your house today. Jesus knew this guy. He knew his name. He knew who he was. He knew all about him. And he says, I still would like to come and have lunch with you. Do you think Jesus want to have lunch with you? I don't know if he'd want to have lunch with me. I don't know why he would. I'm not a big important person, not a big deal in town. If in Omaha, I think he'd probably say to Warren, like to have lunch with you, Warren. He's a big dude. He's a big deal, right? He's important. And Mayor Stothard, I'd like to have lunch with you. I think if I could get to know some of the people, Mr. Lorenzen at First National, let's have lunch. But little me? I don't think so. Now, Jesus is sending a message, by the way, to the religious folks. They would never set foot in Zacchaeus' house. Never. They would not give him the time of day. They wouldn't even make room for him in line. There's some people you think, I don't know, I'd never go to their home. I don't think they'd ever be interested in Jesus. I don't think they'd ever come to our church. You can fill in the blank. After all, they're divorced. After all, they're alcoholic. After all, they're living with their boyfriend. After all, they're gay. After all, I just don't think they'd fit in here at all. Now, the crazy thing is, Zacchaeus, when he hears Jesus say, hey, I'd like to come over your house, he immediately gets to it, right? He doesn't think about it. He doesn't kind of like, have some excuses like, I don't think, if my house is clean, I need to get back to the office. He drops everything at that moment. By the way, Jesus wants to do the same thing for you. He's come looking for you. Now, that might be bothersome. I mean, not right now because you're in church. And it'd be nice if Jesus showed up and he's like, hey, Jesus, I'm in church. I'm in church. Just want you to know that. But last night, we probably wouldn't have wanted him to show up. I don't know, Jesus. Because sometimes Jesus is just bothersome. Don't want him around. But he wants to get to know you. And so he asked, would it be okay if I come over? Now, I just wonder, what was that conversation like? What was the conversation like? I don't know. I would love someday, Zacchaeus, what did he say to you to get you to do this, right? What did he say? Like he's walking along the road with you. It's like he just starts talking. He's like, hey, Zach, are you a Cub fan? Yeah. It's like, great year this year. Like, Jesus, did you have anything to do with that? Maybe. I don't know. They just talked. Here's what didn't happen. John chapter 12, verse 47 says, I will not judge those who hear me but don't obey me, for I have come to save, what? The world and not judge it. My guess from this, and we kind of get this from the story, is that Jesus says, hey, Zach, I want to come over, but before I do that, you got a few things you should probably work on. I mean, you got to knock some of this stuff off, dude. I want to come over, but you're not quite right. You are not quite right with me yet. So when you get it fixed, I'll come over and have lunch with you. But until then, you got to probably do some stuff. You ever feel like that? It's like, before I can become a Christian, I got to knock this off and this and stop and whatever, right? And we probably think, well, I'm probably not worthy of being a Christian yet, so I'm going to stop drinking, smoking, chewing, cussing, whatever. Fill in the blank, right? What has kept you from, you just think, well, I'm just not good enough. By the way, you never will be. You will never be good enough. You will always think, I'm just not good enough. And Jesus is like, whoa, I'm not asking you to do nothing. I just want to come over and have lunch. I just want to come over and have lunch. That's it. Now in verse 7, it's kind of interesting. The people were displeased with this decision that Jesus made. The people were. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious, not just an average guy, a notorious sinner, a massive sinner, a ridiculous sinner, a horrible person. Now, Zacchaeus is ecstatic. Everyone else is somewhat bothered. Do we ever get bothered by lost people? Well, only if they take my chair on Sunday morning. Only if they, right? You know, sometimes we just like it the way it is. We just don't want our church to grow anymore. I hear this occasionally. Aren't we big enough? Aren't we big enough? We've even recently in our Commons area asked people, tell us why you like coming here in the Commons. And oftentimes the response is, well, it's small. Smaller. All right. See, the problem with that is we oftentimes will say, it's small, and I like it that way. I like it this way. I don't want it to get any bigger. Just like we like this room this way. I don't want anybody else to have. I mean, we don't say it out loud because it's horrible, but what we kind of like is, I think we're fine. I got my chair. I got my parking spot. Why do we need another campus? Why do we need another campus? It's always a danger because lost people are bothersome and they're expensive and they're messy. And we just soon not have to deal with it. So here's what happens to Zacchaeus. Verse 8, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, I'm going to give half my wealth to the poor. And if I've cheated people on their taxes, I'll give them back 4 times as much. Everything changes. I'm going to make things right. I doubt if Jesus even asked him to do anything. He just sensed that he needed to do something in his life. And so he decides to write a pretty big check to the Open Door Mission in Jericho. I mean, it's not half his paycheck, it's half his wealth. This is the guy with the big house and the big boat and the big, right, expensive stuff on the top of the hill. Probably the richest guy in town goes and takes it out and writes a check to the Open Door Mission. I mean, poor people are going to get help now. because Jesus came and had lunch with him. Everything changes. Probably the open door people were like, hey, Mr. Zacchaeus? Yeah. I mean, when do you think the last time Zacchaeus had even seen a poor person? He didn't have to. Probably gated community around him, and I don't have to look at poor people unless they owe me some taxes. He writes out a big check. And then he says to Jesus, well, if I've cheated anybody out of some money, I'm going to pay him back 4 times. If you've cheated, I'm sure Jesus went, a little roll of the eyes. Okay. And so he knocks on your door and says, Mr. Chitwood, I've already paid my taxes. Yeah, I know. Is there a problem? Well, I'm sorry. I want you to take this check. Well, I don't get it. I don't understand. I cheated you out of some money, and I need to make this right. You just stand there, and he leaves, and you're like, what? I mean, do you think the city of Jericho changed because this one guy had lunch? All of a sudden, they may not like him, but at least they go, well, at least we have an honest chief tax collector here. Jesus clues us in a little bit. Salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. For Zacchaeus and for Jesus, it wasn't an emotional or an intellectual exercise. There were actions that take place. And then he zings the religious folks and he says, he's become a true son of Abraham. Not just a sort of kind of because he got born into the deal, but because he made a change, right? He's a true son of Abraham. And then Jesus clues us in on why Jesus is on the planet. The Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost. I love lost people. I chose the lostest person on the road that day. Nobody was more lost than, right? This guy is so far from God, so far from community, so far from hope. Nobody's given him the time of day. I choose the lost guy up in the tree. I choose the lost guy in the tree. I believe that's what I need to be about as well. I believe that's what the church should be. See, the church is not a country club where the members get privileges. The church is a place where non-members get privileges. We even tell you occasionally when we have to, hey, can you start parking a little farther away? The closer you are to God, the farther you need to park. And we're like, I don't know. And the reason we tell you that is because oftentimes when people are finding their way to church, if we take up all the front parking because we are members, what are we saying? You're not important yet. Once you become a member, you can park up here. But until then, maybe if you start giving, you can park up here. Maybe you stop doing this. And like, what? And we're just telling people, hey, we want to make room, make space, make place for people who are not yet here, because it's not about the members. It's not about the members. It's about people who are still up in a tree looking for Jesus. By the way, churches that reach lost people will be a little annoying and a little demanding and a little bit more expensive and kind of messy. So if you're looking for a church that's not like that, that's okay. We're just probably not your church, and that's fine. And there's lots of good churches here in town. But we've tried to be our very best where lost people get found. And we're trying to find Zacchaeus. We're trying to find him and invite him to church. That's it. All of us were Zacchaeus at one point. All of us were lost. We didn't know Jesus, but somehow he found us and invited us, and we, for whatever reason, said yes to that invitation. We found Jesus to be full of grace and truth. He didn't make us feel guilty for our sins, but he did take care of them. He didn't make me feel insignificant or small or invaluable. He made me realize that I was important and significant, and he helped me realize that I could be who he always wanted me to be. For lost people, for Jesus, lost people were worth having a lunch about, right? It's like lost people were worth taking time out to go over, like it was. But not only was a lunch, it was worth a lunch. It was worth a cross. He was willing to give his life to. I love Jesus because he loves lost people. Like me. Like you. So today, it's quite possible that he's calling your name. Hey, I'd like to have lunch with you. Really? I would like to come over. Again, for some of you today, like, whoa, I'm not ready for lunch with Jesus. But my guess is you would be surprised. He just wants to come over. He's not going to tell you how to live, what to do, how to clean things up. He just wants you to know that he loves you with an everlasting love, and that's going to be enough for you and for him. So we're going to have some moment right now just to pray, and maybe you will hear him call your name. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you for coming to Omaha today. And didn't know, there's some of us here today that probably never thought you'd show up. Let alone know our names, want to be around us, would even care. But if this is true, if you would come over to my house today, I will open the door. I love being a part of a church like this. Cares a lot about lost people, wants to find, seek, and to save the lost. It's what you're about. It's what we want to be about as well. Thank you for trusting us with that mission and message. In Christ we pray.